A very good evening, friends. I welcome you all to the daily newspaper analysis brought to you by the Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 19th March 2024. Here are the list of articles which we are going to discuss today. So, let's get into discussion. Look at this article. 2024 is the year of elections and the world's largest democratic festival has begun. So, to oversee and implement this, yesterday the Election Commission ordered the transfer of 6 states' Home Secretary to ensure a level playing field ahead of the election. In this light, let us now discuss about Model Code of Conduct, that is the backbone of the oversight of EC, the backbone of the monitoring of elections, its statutory backing and the salient features. First of all, let us start with what is MCC or Model Code of Conduct. See, MCC is a set of guidelines issued by the Election Commission to regulate the political parties and candidates before the elections. These rules ranges from the issues related to speeches, polling day, booth, portfolios, content of the manifestos, procession and general conduct so that free and fair elections are being conducted. This is as per the Article 324(1) of the Indian Constitution. Know that this article empowers the Election Commission to supervise, direct and control the elections to Parliament and legislatures. Note that this code will continue to be in operation from the date of the schedule of election is announced till the date on which the results are being announced. Now, on continuing our discussion, remember this MCC is not enforceable by any law. That is, it is not a statutory document, or in other words, violation of the many provisions does not attract punitive actions. However, certain provisions of the code may be enforced through invoking the provisions in other statutes like IPC, CRPC and RPA 1951. For example, bribery to voters is both a corrupt practice and electoral offence under Section 123(1) of the RPA 1951 and Section 171(b) of the IPC. Okay, now let us see about the restrictions which will be imposed by MCC. Know that MCC contains 8 provisions and they deal with the issues of general conduct, meetings, processions, polling day, polling booth, observers, party in power and election manifesto. So, as soon as the code kicks in, the party in power, whether at the center or in the states, should ensure that it does not use its official position for campaigning. This means no policy, project or scheme can be announced so that it will influence the voting behavior. Know that the party must also avoid advertising at the cost of public exchequer or using official mass media for publicity on achievements to improve the winning chances. Moreover, know that the code also says that the minister must not combine official visits with the electoral work or use official machinery for the same. The ruling party cannot use government transport or machinery for campaigning. It also ensures that the public places like Maidans for holding electoral meetings and the facilities like helipads are also provided to the opposition party on the same terms and conditions on which they will be given to the ruling party. Okay, and moreover, the ruling party cannot make any ad hoc appointments in the government or PSUs which may influence the voters. And also, the political parties or candidates can be criticized based only on their work, and no caste or communal sentiments can be used to lure the voters. And the MCC also will ensure that mosques, church or temple or any other place of worship will not be used for election campaigning. And bribing, intimidating or impersonation of the voter is also being barred by MCC. And know that holding public meetings during the 48-hour period before the hour fixed for the closing of the poll is also being prohibited. See, this 48-hour period is called election silence. The idea allow a voter a campaign-free environment to reflect on the events before casting his or her vote. See, this is all regarding the discussion. In this discussion, we briefly saw what MCC means and what are the restrictions imposed by MCC. With these learned points, let us conclude this and take up the next news article for our analysis. This science quiz from the Hindu newspaper talks about coral bleaching. See, this is one of the important geographical topic or concept which can be asked in the examination. So, using this opportunity, let us revise the basics of coral reef, condition for the formation and distribution from the prelims perspective. Okay, now let us start with the discussion. First of all, what coral reefs are? See, corals are the skeletons of the tiny marine animals called polyps. They flourish in the shallow, mud-free and warm waters. When the living polyps die, the skeletons are left behind. Now, other polyps grow on the top of the hard skeleton. See, on continuing this process again and again, they grow higher and higher thus forming the coral island. Moreover, know that they also secrete calcium carbonate. So, to summarize what we have discussed, this coral secretion and the skeletons from the corals get deposited in the form of reefs. See, this is called coral reef. Now, let us see the types of corals. See, they are divided into three types. They are barrier reef, fringing reef, and atolls. Let us discuss them one by one. See, barrier reefs are typically large-scale linear features that extend parallel to a shore with a lagoon between reef and the mainland. See, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia is a good example of this kind of corals. Secondly, coral atolls. They are the circular reefs that start out as a fringing reef attached to a volcanic island. As the volcanic island subsides, these reefs grows upward and a lagoon develops behind the reef and inside the submerging islands. Eventually, this island can subside below the water level and a ring-like coral structure will remain. Thirdly, with respect to fringing reefs, they are directly attached to the shore with no well-developed lagoon between the reef structure and mainland. In comparison to barrier and atoll, fringing reefs are relatively younger. On continuing our discussion, remember, most of the time corals remain in a symbiotic relationship with single-celled photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellate. See, zooxanthellate performs photosynthesis and the energy generated through the photosynthesis provide the coral with the required energy for growth, reproduction and the construction of their calcium carbonate skeletons, etc. The pigments in the zooxanthellate also gives coral their vibrant colors. In return, the polyps provide a protected environment for the zooxanthellate to thrive, and the waste products like nitrogen, phosphorus released by the corals are used as nutrients by the algae. Now, this does not mean coral cannot survive without the presence of zooxanthellate. There are corals named azooxanthellate corals. It means they do not contain zooxanthellate and they derive their nourishment by capturing different forms of planktons. See, these are all some of the basics that we have to remember about corals. Now, in this image, you can see the distribution of corals. From this image, we can infer that corals are found both near the coast and deep into sea. Reef building corals are generally found at the depth of less than 150 feet where sunlight can penetrate. This is because here only the microscopic algae can receive sunlight and undergo the process of photosynthesis. And moreover, the azooxanthellate corals are found in the dark and deep oceans. On talking about their spatial distribution, corals are found throughout the tropical and subtropical oceans in the Indo-Pacific and Atlantic. Normally, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, that is 30 degrees north to 30 degrees south, it will be present. However, they can also occur outside this range where warm water current travel outside this band. For example, in the case where the Bermuda Islands receive warm tropical waters from the Caribbean northwards due to the Gulf Stream. So here also the corals can thrive. See, this is all about the discussion. In this discussion, we saw about the basics of the coral reefs from the preliminary perspective. With this informed discussion, let us move on to the next topic. Look at this article. Recently, the Hindu editorial covered an article regarding the violence against women based on the findings from the National Family Health Survey 5 report. With this backdrop, let us analyze the violence and other challenges faced by women throughout their lifespan from the mains perspective in a form of question and answer format. Firstly, syllabus. See, this topic comes under GS paper 1 in this area. Now, let us look at the question. The question is, violence against women occurs throughout the life cycle from cradle to grave. Discuss this. See, the question asks us to discuss this issue, so we have to elaborate on the issue and also we have to mention suggestions to overcome these issues throughout the end. Broadly, the answer is going to be an intro, body, conclusion format. Intro format should address the different kinds of violence faced by women based on a report, or we can specify it with examples backed by the data. Then our body part briefly elaborate on the violence faced by women in different stages of life like pregnancy, childhood, adolescence and even in the old age. In addition to this, if a question is 250 words or a 15 marker, we have to give a separate paragraph about the suggestion to improve and give about the personalities who made the change, and we shall also write about the governmental initiative in this regard. But if it's a 10 marker, we can use the above mentioned aspects to conclude. In general, the conclusion of the answer should reflect upon a positive change needed for a progressive future ahead. Okay, this is the skeleton of the answer which we are going to discuss now. Now, let us get started with the answer. Our introduction should be like this. The United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-grounded violence that results in or likely to affect in physical, sexual, or internal detriment or suffering to women, including pitfalls of similar acts, compulsions, or arbitrary privation of liberty, whether being in private or public life. See, the estimates published by the WHO indicate that encyclopedically about 1 in 3 women are subjected to some form of violence. See, this can be your introduction. Having done this intro part, we can jump into the body part of the answer with the help of a connecting sentence like this. As violence against women is pervasive and multifaceted issues that transcends the geographical boundaries and cultural contexts. It manifests itself in the various forms throughout the life cycle of the women from infancy to older age. See, like this way you can give a link to the body part of the answer. Now we can elaborate on what we are going to discuss in the body part. Okay, let us start with the violence which happens to women in childhood. See, during infancy and childhood, women are vulnerable to violence in the form of female genital mutilation, child marriage, and sexual abuse. See, according to WHO, approximately 200 million girls and women alive today would have undergone FGM or female genital mutilation. See, this is predominantly in African and Middle East countries. This early exposure to violence not only inflicts the physical harmness, but it also perpetuates a cycle of trauma and disempowerment that can kill them throughout their life. On continuing our discussion, a recent UN report said that up to 50 million girls and women were missing from the Indian population, the results of the methodical coitus demarcation extending to the revocation of womanhood, which is officially banned. Okay, now having said the discrimination in the childhood, now let us see in the violence which can happen in the adolescence. See, adolescence marks the onset of various different kinds of violence like sexual violence, exploitation, and harassment of girls. Globally, 1 in 3 women have experienced physical or sexual violence, often by an intimate partner. See, the UNFPA reports that approximately 12 million girls are married before the age of 18 each year, exposing to domestic violence and denying them the right to education and autonomy. For instance, in the country like Niger and Bangladesh, child marriage rates are alarmingly high with detrimental effect on the well-being of the girls. Now thirdly, let us discuss the violence which can happen in the adult age. See, in adulthood, women continues to face form of violence like domestic violence, sexual assault, and workplace harassment. See, the WEF Global Gender Gap Report indicates that only 55% of the worldwide women are part of the labor force, with many facing discrimination and harassment in their workplaces. Moreover, the prevalence of intimate partner violence remains staggering, with the WHO estimate says that 30% of the women globally have experienced physical or sexual violence by their intimating partner. Now let us see the India-specific data. See, NCRB India reports that the rate of crime against women increased from 56.5 in 2020 to 64.5 in 2021. Further, it also stressed the stark increase in the violence against women in the form of dowry death, act of sexual importunity, torture, rape, and domestic violence. Okay, having seen the life cycle of women which is coinciding with the discrimination, now let us see the violence in the old age. See, even in the old age, women are not immune to violence, as they may experience elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. See, according to the study by UN, around 1 in 6 older women have experienced some form of abuse in the past year, highlighting the persistent vulnerability of women across the lifespan. See, this violence is often exacerbated by ageism and societal attitudes that devalue older women, rendering them more susceptible to maltreatment. Now, we have to mention a few pointers to highlight a way to address this troubling issue of gender violence. See, here we can mention like this. The need of the hour is to legislate and apply the legislation and develop the programs that promote gender equality by ending the demarcation against the women in marriage, divorce, guardianship laws, heritage laws, and powers of means. Know that fiscal independence is perfecting the women's access to paid employment. Moreover, developing and resourcing the public plans and programs that aims to address the violence against women. See, these are all the need of the hour. See, having done the body part, now let us address the conclusion as follows. See, violence against women is an insidious phenomenon that spans the entire life cycle of female. From the moment they born, women face various forms of violence that impede their rights, autonomy, and well-being. See, international reports and empirical data underscore the urgent need for a concreted effort to address this pervasive issue in a comprehensive manner. See, by implementing the policies and interventions that prioritize the prevention of violence, protection of survivor, and prosecution of the perpetrators, societies can strive towards a future where women are free from violence at the every stage of their lives. See, only through collective action and unwavering commitment can we dismantle the systematic barriers that perpetuate violence against women and ensure a world where every woman can live with dignity and security. See, this can be your introduction for this kind of question. So this is all about the article. In this article, we have systematically analyzed the various issues faced by the women all throughout their life. With this learned points, let us move on to the next news article discussion. This news article talks about the Captive Elephant Transfer or Transport Rules 2024. This rule is being implemented following a recent amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. See, until August 2022, that is before the amendment, WPA Act explicitly prohibited the trade in the wildlife, including both wild and captive elephants. However, amendments brought to the Act gave an exception that, for the first time, it allowed the captive elephants to be moved. See, this is the crux of the news article given here. In this context, let's quickly go through the amendments which was made to the WPA Act 1972. Firstly, the 2022 Amendment Act inserted a new schedule for the specimens listed in the appendix under CITES. See, here we should know about CITES. CITES is an expanded as Convention on the International Trade in the Endangered Species of Wildlife, Fauna and Flora. See, it's an intergovernmental agreement between the various governments, which is aimed to ensure that the international trade in the specimens of plants and animals does not threaten their survival. So, the convention mandates the countries to regulate the trade of all listed specimens through the various permits. Additionally, it aims to regulate the possession of the live animal specimens. What does it mean? It means you cannot possess the live animal specimen which is listed in the appendix without approval. Although CITES is legally binding on the states, it is not self-executing. That's why, to execute that, a new schedule for the specimens listed in the appendix under CITES has been inserted in WPA. Okay, now let us see the second feature. See, the 2022 amendment rationalized the schedule of the WPA 1972. Earlier, the Act had 6 schedules, that is 1 for the specially protected plants, then 4 for the specially protected animals, and 1 for the vermin species. Now, the 2022 amendment had reduced the total number of schedules from 6 to 4. That means it reduced the number of schedules for the specially protected animal from 4 to 2. Know that the schedule for vermin species is only replaced by a new schedule for the specimen listed in the appendix under CITES. So as of now, there are only 4 schedules in the WPA Act 1972. Then, the third feature of the amendment is that it empowers the central government to regulate or prohibit the trade, import, possession or proliferation of the invasive alien species. So, now the central government may authorize an officer to seize and dispose the invasive species. The fourth important feature is that the amendment entrusts the Chief Wildlife Warden of the state to control, manage and maintain all sanctuaries in the state. This means this act specifies that the actions of the Chief Warden must be in accordance with the management plan for the sanctuary, and these plans will be prepared as per the guidelines of the central government. Then the fifth important feature is that the amendment empowers the central government to notify the area as the conservation reserves. Earlier, the power to notify such thing was totally vested with the state government. But now, the center may also notify an area as a conservation reserve. Know that the conservation reserves are basically the areas which are very adjacent to the national park or sanctuaries. And finally, the Amendment Act increased the fine amount for the violation of the various provisions of the WPA 1972. See, these are all certain amendments done to the WPA Act 1972 in the 2022. See, this is all about the discussion. In this discussion, we saw about the various amendments made to the WPA Act. With this learned points, let us conclude this discussion and take up the next news article for our analysis. Look at this Hindu newspaper article. It talks about Anthropocene epoch, which is still an unofficial timescale of human evolution. See, the present debate around this makes it an important detail to be covered for our 2024 prelims, and know that the information about this epoch comes handy for the anthropology optional aspirants. Okay, in our discussion, let us briefly understand about the Anthropocene epoch and the debates surrounding it, and we shall also discuss about other epochs from our preliminary perspective. Okay, first things first, what is Anthropocene epoch? Before starting this, let us understand the basic about the terms associated with the geological timescales. Okay, see, an epoch is a distinct period in time characterized by the significant events or developments. An era refers to the longer span of time marked by particular culture, politics, or historical characteristics. The third phenomenon, called eon, is the longest division of geological time, representing the billions of years in the Earth history. Okay, now with this basics, let us move on to the main topic of the day, that is Anthropocene epoch. See, Anthropocene epoch is a proposed geological epoch characterized by the significant and lasting impact of the human activities on the Earth ecosystem and geology. See, this term first coined by Nobel Prize winning atmospheric chemist Paul Crutzen in 2000. It reflects the unprecedented influence of the human activity on the plant system like climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution, and alteration to the Earth's land surface. The proponents of this epoch argues that the human actions have become the dominant force shaping the Earth environment, even surpassing the natural process. See, however, debates surrounding this epoch center on the formal recognition as a geological epoch by the International Commission on Stratigraphy, with some scientists advocating for the designation due to the profound implications for understanding the Earth history and for predicting the future. On the other hand, some scientists express their reservation about its utility and precision in the geological terms. Okay. With this basic understanding, let us see about other epochs from our preliminary perspective. See, we are going to discuss this in a descending order, that is, from the recent to the ancient one for our better understanding. Okay, let us see the one which precedes the Anthropocene epoch. See, the Holocene epoch, spanning approximately the last 11,700 years, represents the current geological epoch preceding the proposed Anthropocene. It is characterized by relatively stable climatic conditions and the rise of human civilization like agriculture, settlement, advancement in technology, etc. See, the Holocene has witnessed significant changes in the global ecosystem and biodiversity driven by natural process. While the Holocene has provided the environmental stability which is necessary for human advancement, it is now being overshadowed by Anthropocene, which is marked by unprecedented human-driven alteration to the Earth system. Okay, now let us see the epoch which predates Holocene. See, it is called Pleistocene epoch. This is characterized by extensive glaciation and the emergence of modern humans. Okay, before that, it is Mesozoic era. See, it includes Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous period, known for the dominance of dinosaurs and the eventual mass extinction that marks the end of the era. And before Mesozoic, there lies the Paleozoic era. See, it is marked by diversification of life, emergence of complex organisms, and several mass extinction events like Permian-Triassic extinction, which is the largest in the Earth history. Before Paleozoic, there comes Precambrian Eon, which encompasses the majority of the Earth history, characterized by the formation of planet, origin of life, and the development of early multicellular organisms. Okay, in this discussion, we saw elaborately about the various epochs which can be directly asked in the preliminary examinations. Okay, this is all about the article. Let's now jump on to next discussion. Look at this Indian Page article. In February 2024, the average global sea surface temperature or SST reached 21.06 degrees Celsius. This is the highest in the data set dating back to 1979. Know that this data shows a clear trend of increasing sea surface temperature and 2024 continuing this upward trajectory. This phenomenon is sarcastically been termed as the ocean has a fever in this article. See, this is the crux of the article. So, let's break down this article and learn things from the exam perspective. We know that this geography topic comes in geography in GS1 in preliminary. And in GS1 in mains, it comes under important geophysical phenomena such as earthquake, tsunami, etc. Okay, now let us get into discussion. So firstly, for those who don't know, ocean warming is known by calculating the temperature of the water at the surface of the ocean. Okay, now let us see what are the causes of the global warming from the author's point of view. Firstly, the author says that primary driver of this warming trend is in the increased concentration of greenhouse gases like CO2, methane, nitrous oxide and ozone in the atmosphere due to variety of anthropogenic reasons, notably the burning of fossil fuels. As we know that these gases trap the heat leading to global warming, with oceans absorbing about 90% of this additional heat. Secondly, the issue is characterized by the warming of the ocean surface water in the equatorial Pacific, which can influence the global weather patterns and contribute to higher SST across the globe. Thirdly, the Sahara Desert typically sends dust over the Atlantic Ocean and eventually it will cool it down. But recently, due to weaker winds, that has led to less dust and consequently warmer ocean temperatures across the Atlantic. The fourth reason is reduction in the sulfur in the marine fuels. See, international regulations have lowered the amount of sulfur which can be used in the shipping fuels to cut down the air pollution. But the issue is, since sulfur dioxide can form aerosols that reflect the sunlight, its reduction means more solar radiation reaches the ocean surface, thus lead to increased ocean surface temperature. So these are some of the points the author says are the reasons for increasing SST. Now let us see what are the consequences of the warmer oceans. Firstly, the warmer surface temperature leads to a more stratified oceans, affecting the mixing of water layers. See, this can reduce the ocean's ability to absorb the carbon dioxide and mix oxygen to deeper water, thus eventually impacting the marine life. Secondly, these events, when become very frequent, intense and longer, will lead to various catastrophes like coral bleaching, fish kills and changes in the distribution and migration pattern of the marine species. Thirdly, a decrease in the phytoplankton population due to less nutrient upwelling would destabilize the marine food webs, threatening the diverse marine life. Fourthly, warmer ocean contribute to more severe weather events like hurricanes, cyclones due to increased evaporation and the transfer of heat from ocean to the atmosphere. Note an important point that World Meteorological Organization warned that the current warming trend is likely to continue in the near future and the temperature could exceed the critical threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels in the near future. So, the only viable solution to mitigate this impact is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in a significant manner. However, the author shows a pessimistic viewpoint, stating that the global efforts are still far from achieving the necessary reductions to curb the warming trend. See, this is all about the discussion. In this discussion, in the first part, we saw about the causes for the increasing sea surface temperature, and in the second part, we saw about the consequence of it. This is all regarding the discussion. With this, let us move on to the next part of our video, that is to discuss the preliminary practice questions. See, today we are having 4 questions. I'll solve 3 of them and one will be a quiz question for you to solve. Okay, let's start answering. See the first question. Consider the following statements with reference to Model Code of Conduct. See the first statement. Anybody breaching the MCC cannot be proceeded against any class of the code. See, this is correct because in our discussion we saw that they will be prosecuted under separate acts like IPC or RPA, etc. So the statement is correct. See the second statement. The ECI uses moral sanction or censure for the implementation. See, this is correct because MCC does not have any legal backing. So both the statements are correct. So the correct option is option C. Let's see the second question. Consider the following statements with respect to coral reefs. See the first one. Cryomess is a specially fabricated mesh used in the cryopreservation. See, this is lightweight and can be manufactured cheaply. It is used to preserve the corals and has the properties of cryoplates. See, the mesh will help store the coral larvae at minus 196 degrees Celsius. So this is correct option. See the second option. In India, coral reefs are found in the Andaman and Nicobar as well as Lakshadweep Islands. See, this is also correct as we have already know. See the third one. Hard corals are primarily reef building corals. Okay, now let us analyze this statement. These hard corals or reef building corals extract the CaCO3 or calcium carbonate from the seawater to build a hard white coral exoskeletons. So this is also correct. See the fourth statement. Soft corals lack solid skeletons. See, this is absolutely correct as the third and fourth statements are contradictory to each other. So if the third statement is correct, fourth is also correct. So all the 4 statements are correct. So the correct option is option C. Let us see the third question. With reference to the Wildlife Prevention Amendment Act 2022, consider the following statements. See, it inserted the new schedule in the WPA for the specimens listed in the appendices under sites. See, this is correct as we have seen elaborately in our discussion. See the second one. It empowers the central government to notify a area as a conservation reserve. So this is also correct because earlier state government used to do that. Now both central government and state governments can do it. So this is also correct. See the third one. It entrusts the chief wildlife warden of the state to control, manage and maintain all the sanctuaries in the state. See, this is also correct. So the correct option is option D. The quiz question based on today's discussion is listed here. Interested aspirants can answer it in the comment section. The mains question based on today's discussion is listed here. Interested aspirants can write and get back to us. If you like today's video, like, comment and share it with your friends. For more updates regarding UPSC preparation, subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you very much.